What the heck? Hey guys, today on What the Tech we're going to take a look at how to set up your WRAITH CO2 stock. Now normally we run these on the bench, but since we aren't doing an installation, we already have this installed, we're just going to do this here at the desk and we're going to take a look at how to set it up. So we're going to go ahead and pull off the stock here. There's a couple things we're going to look at. First, we're going to look at how to set the hard stop, and then we're going to take a look at how to set the length on the CO2 cartridge adapter to set it for different brands of CO2 cartridge. There's a couple of Allen keys that are included with the WRAITH CO2 stock. The larger of the two is we'll use for setting the length of the CO2 cartridge. The smaller of the two is for adjusting the pressure on your regulator, which we'll also talk about later on. For the hard stop, you'll also notice that there are a couple of small pieces. There's a screw and a washer that come with the kit, not attached to anything. To install these, you're going to want it is a 7/64 Allen wrench. This will come with any standard Allen wrench set. The 7/64 wrench is used for what we have here, which is our hard stop. Now, why do we have a hard stop? When you're using this, let's go ahead and put the stock back on. Okay, so when you're using this, how it's going to work is you're going to be shooting, and then you're going to drop it down on your sling. All right. So once you collapse the stock, that's fine. Pop the cartridge off, put in a new cartridge, snap it down, all good. When you go to re-extending the stock, you may not want it fully extended. You may only want it out a couple clicks. So the hard stop lets us set how far it comes out. You see it's just set here. This is where I use it. So it's just flush with the back of the cartridge. All right, and it's adjustable. So let's go ahead and take a look at how to adjust that. So I'm going to pull the stock off. You'll notice that there are 3 tapped holes in the bottom side of the stock here. That's going to set, just like the back end of the slot here stops the stock at the back, that's going to stop it earlier. Where I usually have it set is in the forward position, because I like to hold the gun close. If you want it a little further out, all you're going to do is you're going to take the washer, drop it down in, take your screw, tighten it down. And then you're set up with your hard stop, so now the stock won't extend past where you want. You can just leave it out and you can have it extend normally if that's what you like, or if you use it in the fully extended position. So that's the first thing. Now let's talk about how to set up the cartridge engagement. You'll notice on the bottom side of the stock there are 2 screws. These 2 screws, one is a button head cap screw and one is a set screw. I do want to note you should never remove the button head cap screw without completely emptying the system of CO2. You want to shoot all of the CO2 out of the system before you do that. The button head cap screw is what holds the whole regulator and CO2 cartridge assembly inside the buffer tube. We'll talk about that more in a minute when we talk about one troubleshooting thing. The back set screw here, you'll notice if I loosen it, I can rotate the cap now. If you watch closely, you'll notice that as I rotate the cap, it screws in. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove this entirely from the system just to show you what's going on. So we're going to remove our front button head cap screw. You see the whole assembly just slides right out. When I am rotating the back cap, you'll see it's threading at the middle portion here. And what that's doing is it's changing the length of engagement on the CO2 cartridge puncture. So this is an already punctured cartridge, you can see. But what that's going to let us do is different brands of cartridge can be a little bit different in how long they are. And what you want is you want to set it so that it just barely starts to puncture, and then the auto-puncturing mechanism kicks in the rest of the way. So we're going to go ahead and put this back in, and we're going to talk about how to do that. Alright, so what we're going to do is, again, we've reinstalled this, and we'll talk about how to do that correctly here in a minute, with our screw holding it in. And we're going to remove the empty cartridge. And we're going to back this out, unscrew it, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, same as usual, they're standard threads. And we're going to back it out far enough that we can get all the way to the closed position. You'll notice there are 2 scallops on the QD fitting. The second scallop, the lower scallop, is a safety catch to prevent it from popping the cap off if there's still pressure in the system. We want to get it all the way to the closed position. So with the cartridge, with the cap all the way on, again to the second scallop, we're just going to screw this down until the cartridge punctures. And you'll hear it puncture. Then we're going to shoot all of the CO2 out of the system. Of course, anytime you're going to fire the gun, put on your safety glasses. Now that the CO2 is all the way out of the system, we are going to back up one notch. There are flats on the side of the CO2 adapter, like you can see here. And we're going to back it up, turn it counterclockwise one notch. And you always want the set screw to end up on a flat. So we're going to back it up one flat, and then we're going to tighten it down. So at this point, you can remove the cap, remove the cartridge, and we can try with a fresh cartridge. And it's probably set correctly at this point. We'll see. And that worked perfectly. It punctured, pressurized, and we're ready to go. If you find that you can't fully engage into the second scallop, then you need to back it up, unscrew it a little bit more to let a little bit more depth. Just take it one step at a time. If you find that you're clicking the cap all the way on and it's not puncturing the cartridge, tighten it down one flat again, and you should be good. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to properly remove the system from the buffer tube for service, maintenance, whatever you need to do. So before we remove the cylinder from the stock, we of course want to make sure the system is free of CO2. So with no pressure in the system, we can go to our button head cap screw here at the front, and we can use the included Allen wrench. I'm just going to unscrew it. Also, you need to loosen up the set screw that we used earlier for setting the length. So loosen that up. And at that point, the whole system will just slide out of the back of the stock. At this point, you could disassemble it. You have your regulator portion up here at the front, and then your CO2 cartridge adapter at the back here. We could disassemble it for maintenance if we needed to at this point, and we'll do that in more detail in a later video. But for now, I want to just talk about one troubleshooting thing. If you're finding that you're trying to set the length, and it doesn't seem to be making any difference, what you want to check is probably the threads at this point here are unscrewing instead of the threads at this back point here. So if you find that, what you want to do is you just want to tighten that down, and you want to make sure these threads are loose. Usually that happens if the threads at the back here get all the way tightened down until they're bottomed out, and then it might break loose at the front and cause that. So you want to tighten this down and make sure the threads at the back are loose and adjustable there. Now we're going to talk about how to properly reinstall it, because that's important, because if you don't reinstall it correctly, you may end up shooting the system out of the back of the stock there, which is not a good idea. To install it properly, we want to line up the pressure adjustment screw on the regulator with the middle hole on the top of the stock. So we're going to line it up right there. With that lined up, we can flip it over, and we can use the included Allen wrench to tighten it down. Notice that if you like I have here, the screw does not go flush below the surface here, then you do not have it installed properly. That means that it's not lined up, and you need to flip it back over, and you need to figure out what happened. And you can see here that the screw is not lined up correctly with the hole. So it got moved while I was installing it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen the screw back up. I'm going to go check and find that yes, indeed, it did move out of position a little bit. So we're going to set it back where it needs to go, and we're going to tighten it back down. And this time when we tighten it down, we'll find that the screw head goes all the way below the surface. That is important. Otherwise, when you do it, you don't have any positive retention if this is not in correctly holding the stock in. So you can force the whole assembly back out the back of the buffer tube, which we don't want. Now, since we changed it, we'd have to go back in and set the length again, but that's easy enough to do. Last thing we want to talk about is just how to adjust the pressure. On the top of the stock, you'll see there's this opening here. If your stock has an opening in it, you can remove it. If not, you can just remove the whole stock and get to it. You can use the small included Allen key to adjust the pressure adjustment screw through that hole. Counterclockwise turns the pressure up, clockwise turns the pressure down. You can just adjust it that way. use your chrono to figure out what, get it set to the velocity you need, and then you can tamper-proof tape to cover it up and tournament lock it. That's all we got for today, guys. Again, this has been the setup for the WRAITH CO2 stock. I hope this was helpful. If you guys have any questions, comments, let us know, and we will do our best to get back with you. We'll see you guys out on the field.